What we do know at this point in time is that the president of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, will be landing in the country any moment from now and will be making his way to the union buildings to have those bilateral relations with President Ramaphosa, and also the bilateral talks between various ministers that will be discussing trade relations, issues also emanating of immigration, as we will also be speaking to the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Motsoaledi, who will further speak on the importance of these trade relations between Uganda and South Africa, which dates back to 1994, when President Mandela established those trade relations and diplomatic relations with Uganda when he was still the head of state, subsequently to President Mbeki, subsequently to President Zuma. Before that, it was interim President Motlanthe and also President Ramaphosa now. And also the trade relations between these two countries is telecommunications, and also our struggling power utility, Eskom, also exports electricity to Uganda. Now I'm going to bring in Dr. Motsoaledi, the Minister of Home Affairs within the country. Minister Motsoaledi, the importance of the trade relations between these two countries and how it translates to issues of immigration as well.
Well, it is very important. Remember that Uganda is a very, very big player in the Great Lakes area and in the Eastern African region. So if South Africa wants to have good trade relations, it is countries such as those. After all, you are aware that the AU is promoting trade, intra-African trade, and that's why there is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that there must be intercontinental, countries must trade with each other inside before we even go outside the continent. So Uganda will be one of the biggest players, obviously.
When you look at the Great Lakes region, Minister, and you look at the political instability that's there, particularly between the DRC and Rwanda, you look at the issues pertaining there, you look at the South African National Defense Force helicopter that was shot down, you look at our troops that have been deployed to that area to seek for peace and stability. And the discussions here today will also centralize around those issues and how they affect trade and how they affect issues of movements of people through immigration. What are some of the key factors that can be drawn from trying to find peace and stabilities within those areas that affect issues of people, movement and immigration?
Yeah, that's a very, very difficult question. I'm sure you are aware, Samkelo, that the instability there in that Great Lakes area is as old as the mountains and is pitting one country against the other. And in my little knowledge, having been to the DRC, is because of the minerals in the DRC that there is instability in that area. No country will accept that, but that's the basic issue. And it's very difficult to know how it will actually pan out. But you are aware that the South African Defense Force that is there is not there as South Africa per se, is there as part of the United Nations Peacekeeping Force, MONUSCO, as they call it. So it's a very complex situation. I was hoping you won't ask me that question because I'm also not in that field. The knowledge I'm having is just by virtue of being in government. But it's a complex thing, and there's no way that it can be discussed between the two presidents today.
But also, I ask these questions because the president of the DRC, President Tshisekedi, was just in the country, was there during the mining Ndaba, which is a country filled with lots of minerals, which is the DRC. How do you then manage these relations on a diplomatic manner, that you have relations with Rwanda through President Paul Kagame and also have relations through the DRC with President Tshisekedi? When it comes to the issues of trade, do you then not get caught up in these battles of the Great Lakes when having our diplomatic relations and trade relations with these countries, particularly knowing with the state visit of President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda coming today?
Well, that happens all over the world, really. For a country to have relationship with two countries which don't even speak to each other. I'm sure you must be aware that in terms of international diplomacy, your interest as a country comes first. If you need something from a particular country and your relationship with them, you can't say, no, I'm not going to do so because they hate the other country which I've got the relationship with. So it happens all over the world. Intra-country trade can happen between really sworn enemies because the interest here is to trade.
Minister, on the issues of the Afghan nationals that were caught in Limpopo, what is the update on that particular case, particularly knowing on immigration issues and also having individuals coming into the country getting their correct paperwork? How far is that case? And with foreign nationals committing crimes within the country, how do you then go about resolving those particular cases?
Well, let me correct. They've never been in Limpopo. They've always been in Zimbabwe throughout. They never set any foot in Limpopo. Remember, they were in Beit Bridge. And the letter from their lawyers, which we received on the 16th of February, informing us that people will be coming, it was telling us to prepare a transit visa for them to enter the country. And of course, they were going to enter through Limpopo. But we never did that. We refused. And even when they went to court and got a court order, which we squashed the following day, we still did not allow them. So they've never been there, in Limpopo. What we heard is because they were having visas for 30 days to be in Zimbabwe, and those visas expired on the 19th, a day before our final court case, for which we are still waiting for the judgment. We understand they were arranged for to go to Zambia, and I've got to believe that they could still be in Zambia, but I don't have proof of that.
Minister, there's a cabinet reshuffle coming in the coming days. Are you scared that you may be going to Parliament to just be an ordinary MP and be reshuffled by the president? How are you feeling going towards the end of the week?
Why should I be scared? I'm a member of Parliament, by the way, and I was a member of Parliament before I'm a minister. Remember that you get into Parliament, and if the president is prepared to appoint you as a minister, so be it. If he decides that you're no longer the minister, so be it also. So I don't know. I don't understand why is there anything to be scared about.
Were you that minister that director said you must let a few people eat a little bit?
Oh, no, definitely not. Definitely not. I'm sure we'll hear from the director when he goes to report the matter at the police station, because he has been challenged to do so. And the 7 days that he has been given, I think, is ticking, if I'm not mistaken. But I definitely am not.
Do you think he'll go and lay those charges against that particular minister and high-ranking ANC politician, particularly if there's no evidence to back it up?
Samkelo. He is forced to go. If you see corruption, I'm sure you know the law called Prevention of Corrupt Activities Act. You are compelled, if you are in a position of authority and you see corruption happening, you have got to go and report that corruption. Otherwise, you'll also be found guilty. So it's not a matter of choosing whether I want to choose to report this or the other, because if we were to do so, then this rampant corruption in our country won't be able to defeat it. Just come to Home Affairs and see how many people are charging for. We're trying to clean up the department, and we have told everybody in the department that if you happen to know and pick up something about corruption and you've got authority and you don't report it, we're going to come for you. So the director has got no option. He must go and report the matter and say, this is what happened. Because if there's no evidence, then why did he talk about it publicly? You don't do so unless you have got some form of evidence, at least even if it's prima facie evidence. Otherwise, then you're just a howler and you are just causing war where they shouldn't be. So we are all waiting for him to report it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Are you still going to be the Minister of Home Affairs next week?
Samkelo, please don't take chances.
Don't
take chances.
No, that is fine. Mr. Aaron Motsoaledi, the Minister of Home Affairs, speaking about those issues of trade, issues of immigration, particularly, and the instability that is there within the Great Lakes region. President Yoweri Museveni is coming into the country for those bilateral relations with President Ramaphosa, and actually the importance of the trade relations between these two countries, particularly with the gold deposits that are there within Uganda. You also look at issues of telecommunications, where South Africa is a major player within that space in Uganda through the MTN group. They also have our struggling power utility, Eskom, that is exporting electricity to Uganda as well. And Uganda also, the role that it plays in its exports to South Africa, which we import into this country, which is fresh flowers, which many like yourself, Desiree, will obviously appreciate a fresh bouquet of flowers. Those will be those discussions, and also peace and stability, issues of the Great Lakes, issues of silencing the guns within the African continent.
Oh, absolutely, Samkele. My side hustle is arranging flowers, so absolutely. But just on a serious note, it was inevitable, right, that the issues of the cabinet reshuffle were going to spill into the conversations about the state visit. What do we know there? Just what's the latest?
Issues of the cabinet reshuffle will always feature, particularly in these days, as President Ramaphosa will be reshuffling his cabinet and looking at redeploying certain ministers in his executive issues, particularly knowing that the likes of Dr. Motsoaledi have been key players in the cabinet of President Ramaphosa, and not only within government, but also within the political machinations of the governing party. They are very key and central to those issues, particularly also on the government perspective. The issues of immigration has been very vocal about the issues of foreign nationals, undocumented migrants within the country, and he speaks and says what many politicians and many cabinet ministers would love to say, but on a diplomatic aspect cannot say those particular utterances of speaking of what is truly on the ground. Some have even labeled Dr. Motsoaledi as bordering on xenophobic and not wanting foreign nationals within the country, and saying that if you go to Nigeria, for example, if you go to the DRC, you will not find an area which is overpopulated by South Africans, and essentially has become, in what many people say, that Yeovil has become a certain place for certain people from the African continent, and they are saying that there needs to be order in the country, and foreign nationals who come into the country whom are documented, and those whom are not documented must get their proper documentation or leave the country. He's been very vocal on those issues, and those are some of the issues that President Ramaphosa will be assessing him on when it comes to his performance in government, and also cleaning up the Department of Home Affairs, which that work started with Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Mavuso Msimang, who was the Director General then at Home Affairs.
I don't know if Minister Motsoaledi is still with you, Samkele. I just wondered about the conversation around the electoral law that is being unpacked in Parliament today, just in terms of, because it started off from his department, just what he has to say about this. I don't know if he's still with you.
Desiree, I'm just going to go and ask him and grab him on that electoral act that is being an electoral law that is being discussed. Minister Motsoaledi, there's just one question from my colleague Desiree Chawuka on the electoral law that is currently being discussed now in Parliament. Since it was emanating from your department, how that is coming along, what are your views, particularly with that amendment to South Africa's electoral laws?
It has been passed last week, Thursday. Remember, today is the deadline of the Constitutional Court ruling that by today that act must have been passed. So we didn't wait for today. Parliament didn't wait for today. They passed it last week, Thursday. As I'm speaking, it is on the president's desk to sign it into law.
When are you anticipating that the president may sign it into law? How far have those discussions been between yourself and the president?
No. The president never held discussions with me. There is no need. What the president does when Parliament passes a law, he calls his legal advisors, legal experts, to look into it. The main issue is to check the constitutionality and then pass it. And so, as I'm saying, it's on the president's desk. They are working on it. I don't know when it will be ready, but I'm hoping it shouldn't take long, because the reason that the Constitutional Court said it must end, the deadline is the 28th, is because they want the IEC to start preparing for elections, for 2024 elections. And so the more we delay them, the more we disadvantage the IEC. And I want to believe the presidency is aware of that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Motsoaledi. That is Minister Motsoaledi speaking on the amendment of South Africa's electoral laws that were dictated to by the Constitutional Court, saying that South Africa's electoral law acts must be looked into, and those are some of the issues that are before the president's desk when it comes to South Africa's electoral politics going into the future, Desiree.